Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Harakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and shalom to all the brothers doing the work of sharing truth. Um, yeah, it's brother M1 from the GMS London camp. Got this article, and it's basically looking into what's going down in France. It's funny because it's like globally, it's mainly in the Western world where it's kind of it's hitting that point where people are getting agitated, and they're what's the word, gonna be getting roused up because why, the price of everything's going up, monetary wise, they're making less, work, they're getting paid less. There's a variety of issues basically that are kind of hitting them, and yeah, they're in France, that they've got their particular issue that sent them over the edge. But France is a spot where people get will be protesting like that man were doing the yellow vest, the gilet jaune or whatever the fuck it was, man, a yellow vest protest for like a year plus before like the pandemic kicked in. So these men are wild as fuck already and resistant. It's similar to like over here, not to the same degree, because they won't got as persistently. But then I remember during the Iraq War, you had people outside Parliament for there's men that camped there for like a fucking whole decade, man. There was men that were camping there for time, like, and people were protesting. People protest on a regular, almost every week. There'll be some form of protest going on, less so in winter, but then, now spring's kicking in. Once it gets warmer, it's gonna be a normal. So this is on the Daily Mail. It says violence erupts in across France as protesters clash with riot cops and thousands take to the streets over Macron's hated pension reforms. So yeah, I think that says violence erupted across France as thousands took to the streets to protest against pension reform. Riot police fought running battles with demonstrators in Paris on a so-called Black Tuesday of industrial action across the country. The worst trouble was close to the Port Royal metro station, where hundreds of riot police used tear gas and baton charges as projectiles rained down on them. Bins were set on fire, and bus stops destroyed by so-called black bloc anarchists. So yeah, it's funny because a lot of these times you'll have just a few men in and among. I remember it's like a lot of the ones in America when they're popping off, you'll just see like a few men come in and just start doing a madness, and it would just incite people to lose it more. But hey, could be that, could be also just people feeling jacked up to where they're gonna be getting aggressive like that. It says big crowds also took the streets of Marseille, Nice, and other cities, and trouble was also reported in other major cities, including Lyon, Nantes, and Rennes. A Parisian police spokesperson said agitators, fuck you know, had joined the crowds and accused them of attacking police whenever they can. A protest march is being heavily policed, and everything is being done to restore law and order, he said. Yeah. So, you got the footages, you got the cops, the riot police looking to come and wallop heads. And then man there, it's a guy, oh no, he's got a beard, I think. But yeah, in front of the riot man, was dashing a flare. It's fucking funny. And then yeah, that's it's a makeshift barricades. There ain't no barricade, bro. That's like free bins. Shit. Saving bus drivers. burn flares to a banner, reading in French. On March 7, let's lock everything. They said millions are furious at President Emmanuel Macron's attempt to increase the retirement age from 62 to 64. It's funny because, bringing France in line with many of its EU neighbours and the UK where state pension age is 66. Yeah, I was like, over here, I remember I think, maybe it was during, like, 2008, during, like, the credit crunch and all that shit. When, I think it was then when the UK pushed it to, like, 65, and then later they must have pushed it to 66. But said, as a result, Macron is facing his biggest standoff with France's trade union since coming to power in 2017, as his flagship proposal hangs in the balance. So yeah, he's what'd it say? That retirement age, that's gonna be fucking people up, man. Because especially if it's like people that they're all thinking like, oh, I might be retiring in a year or two, they're gonna be feeling, what the fuck? They could have plans around that shit. And this is why people get roused up. And it's funny because I remember when what'd you call it? When what the fuck's it called? The uni prices were getting tripled. So I went from in the UK, it went from 3,000, I think 3,400 or 3,700 max a year to 9 grand. And then it was like everyone was charging 9 grand, and it seemed like I was thinking, all right, maybe it's not too bad, but it's kind of fucked. It's like people that in the world, that shit is legendary amounts of destruction, man. Because they're basically thinking like, yo, well, a lot of them are actually gonna have to pay that shit back. It's fucked. It's fucked. So what did it say? So it says today marks the 6th day of nationwide strikes since mid-January and could surpass the largest protest so far, with more than 1.27 million gathering on January 31st. Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin said 11,000 police were mobilized across the country, including 5,000 Paris alone. So yeah, people getting roused up, man. Funny as hell. But it's a lot of these like infrastructure and basically core parts, because it's like drivers and whatnot. People in public transport, well, it's going to be people where they're thinking like that pensions part of their plan going forward, man. They got them jobs where they're making a good bit from their employer putting money in. But there would have been people where they're thinking, I'm retiring this year, and man's trying to make them work for like an extra 2 years. It's fucked. It's fucked still. But hey, it's got people roused up. Second Esdras 15 and 15, it says, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their action shall stand in their power. Yeah, so that's that sedition among men. And that's yet another form of it. Because we still got the conflict going on. Satan rising up against Satan. If Satan if Satan's basically getting in conflict with himself, with Ukraine, Russia, America, Russia, whatever, Esau against Esau, how can his kingdom stand? And that really applies. Because it is a thing where this is basically showing that this shit's all ready to crumble, man. This shit ain't gonna last. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and the men shall be afraid. Yeah. So that sedition is what is going to result in further restrictions, further control, where everything's getting locked down. And that's why it's like, they have these things rousing up. Because why? They have these things rousing up. They have these things rousing up because essentially, because it's part of that order of chaos, where they're basically setting up certain things that are going to rouse up that chaotic response, bring in confusion, bring in, conflict, then, stir that, and then a reaction's needed. And that reaction's basically going to bring about, them able to establish further controls, man, further restrictions, further policies that can push forward their agenda. Ecclesiastes 12:1, remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, while the sun, or the light, or the moon, or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In a day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out the windows be darkened. Yeah, the grinders cease, man. There's a lot of people going to stop engaging with the system because they're essentially that promise of that dream, that American dream, that hope, where they can build something. There's some kind of future there. That's all going to be in the rear view mirror. And they're just going to be like, yo, what the fuck am I even doing this for? They might have kids where they're struggling to feed the kids. They might have, hardships, maintain a job, maintain a roof over their head. And then they're just like, yo, what the fuck is this? And that's the thing is these things are slowly piling up. Really not so slowly now. Because we've got, the energy costs that really kicked off, in earnest from the Ukraine war. And then as well, food as well, food shortages here in the UK. There's like a fresh fruit and veg shortage because the EU ain't sending it to the UK. Because why? It costs, it's they're not making as much of a profit off it. And there's not as much to go around. And that's the reality of how a lot of these things that are trade, it's like we go into Tesco even forever. I remember from being a youth seeing, oh, this comes from South Africa, this comes from Spain, this comes from Italy. So it's like now that those things aren't available, it's like wagwan. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. So yeah, that sound of the grinding is gonna be low. That money making, that participation within these sort of systems is gonna be low. But then that's where, our temptation, the charagma, basically becomes an aspect. Because then it's going to be like, yo, you jump on this, that's where salvation lies. And that's going to be the temptation, man. What was it? Revelation 3:10, it says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, and to try them that dwell upon the earth. Yeah? So we're going to be required. It's going to be necessary to have, the aid of Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Hashem Harakakadash to endure through, man. We're basically going to be, relying on that aid, man, to basically keep us from that time, because it's going to be intense. It's going to be legendary, man. It's basically a time that never was before. Daniel 12:1, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and it shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Yeah. So, being among that number, being among the elect, that's the essential key part to essentially, to make it through. Because without that, it's like, what's the method? How you gonna get out of there, man? But yeah, I'll leave it there. Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.